Well, hello. Welcome to my YouTube channel, and especially welcome to my first ever book review. And for this particular book review, I have decided to review the book Science vs. Evolution, A Science Highlights Fundamental Flaws in Atheistic Evolution, written by Dr. Jeff Miller and published by Apologetics Press of Montgomery, Alabama in 2013. Now, you may be wondering why I've chosen to review this particular topic or this particular book. Well, in the last few years, I've had a rekindled interest in Christian evidences and apologetics. And in August of 2016, I was at the Polishing the Pulpit workshop in Sevierville, Tennessee, and found this book at a vendor's display and bought it. And I just read it here a couple of weeks ago and decided I would do a review on it. Now, Dr. Miller earned his Bachelor's of Science in Physical Science from Freed-Hardeman University, and he holds a Bachelor's of Science and a Master's of Science in Mechanical Engineering from the University of Texas at Arlington. He has an emphasis in biothermal sciences, biotransport phenomena, and biomechanics. And then Dr. Miller earned a PhD from Auburn University with an emphasis in navigation and control of biological systems. And here, well, yeah, we won't hold that against him that he's an Auburn graduate. Now, in modern American academia, as well as media, evolution is assumed to be a proven fact, of which it's not. And Dr. Miller lays out a very good case why we can believe the Bible and science. Many times in the media and various sources, they act as though you have to choose either faith or science. You can't have both. The truth of the matter is you can believe in both. Now, if you're like me, you sloughed off in math and science classes when you were in school. And now, years later, you wished you'd paid attention. Well, in Science vs. Evolution, Dr. Miller, in his book, and like other books from Apologetics Press and similar publishers, he shows that Christians do not need to be afraid of science or competing philosophies, such as the theory of evolution. Now, topics covered in the book's 8 chapters also include comparing evolution to laws of causality, probability, and biogenesis. Biogenesis is just one of those fancy terms that means life comes from existing life. Chapter 8 looks at evolution and how it conflicts with the laws of genetics, before going into several appendices offering answers to some of the criticisms offered against creation. Now, first, let's look at some strengths of the book. The first strength is Dr. Miller's qualifications. I have some resources on this subject written by people who lack the scientific background. Now, while a given author's non-science background does not necessarily mean the information is bad, having a solid educational or experience background in the subject matter of the book is always a plus. In this case, Dr. Miller has a science background, writing on a scientific topic. If you're looking for a history book, it's a good idea to have a historian write the book. In Science vs. Evolution, you'll find that it's simple to understand. He lays out the case that science is compatible with Christian belief, and Dr. Miller shows the basic laws of science, namely the first and second laws of thermodynamics, do fit with the Creator. One of the problems I have encountered with books on topics like science or history or even theology that are intended for the layman or the general public is that the author many times forgets who the target audience is. And they start using a lot of technical jargon, a lot of fancy charts and graphs, and very quickly the book gets bogged down in technical language that gets too deep for the reader to understand, especially if that reader is not familiar with the topic. Dr. Miller does not do this. He keeps his target audience in mind and writes in a simple, easy-to-follow style. Now, the book Science of Evolution is an excellent resource for the non-scientist. That's another strength of it. It's easy to understand, very logical in its arguments, and it emphasizes a creator without getting bogged down in a lot of religious dogma or sectarian dogma or anything like that. Dr. Miller also clearly defines his terms, such as science, evolution, creation, and then he sticks to those definitions. Now, a pet peeve of mine is when an author defines terms one way, but then uses them in a totally different way, or uses terms and doesn't bother to define them as to how he wants to use them. And then at the end of each chapter, another strength is the common quibbles he lists that atheists fire off at creationists, and tells you where in the book you can find a defense to it. Also, at the end of each chapter is a list of discussion questions that you can use for a group study or even individual study. Dr. Miller also shows how atheistic evolution, at its core, is a faith-based belief system, such as in this quote right here from J.C. Sanford that you can find on page 119 of Science versus Evolution. Now, due to the internet and the ease with which people can copy and paste any information from anywhere, I always look at bibliographies for books like this. When I look at the bibliography, I look at three questions. Number one, is there a bibliography? Number two, how extensive is the bibliography? Number three, how up-to-date are the sources of that bibliography? Now, from my vantage point, Dr. Miller's bibliography is both a strength and a weakness. Now, you might wonder why I am concerned about the inclusion of a bibliography. Well, I have read a lot more history and a lot more biography than I have science. And I've read a lot of history and biography books and other works of nonfiction with no bibliography. And I see quotes attributed to historical figures, and I see claims made about events and people, and I wonder, okay, where did this come from? I've never heard this. This quote sounds out of character for this person. Where did the author get this quote? Oh, I can't tell. There's no bibliography. And when I taught at a community college, I required a bibliography for all term papers and assignments that students turned in. So I expect a bibliography for a book like Science versus Evolution. Now, is there a bibliography? Well, yes, there is. The book is about 265 pages of text, and the bibliography is about 20 pages of books and periodicals. Now, what I'm not sure of, and I count this as a weakness of the book, is this a comprehensive bibliography or a bibliography of sources cited? Personally, I would have listed a comprehensive bibliography of everything that I looked at to write the book, and then in another section I would have had various chapter notes of cited sources, so the reader knows for sure which sources I cited and which ones I might have consulted but didn't cite for whatever reason. How extensive is the bibliography? 20 pages of bibliography in a 265-page book is pretty good, I think. But it's hard to say just how extensive it is because it's unclear to me whether the bibliography is comprehensive or just one of sources cited. Now, how up-to-date is the bibliography? Now, this is an issue with me because many creation advocates I have read over the years use sources that are very old. For example, in the mid-1980s, I heard my very first creation science lecture presented by Dr. Duane Gish, the late Dr. Gish of the Institute for Creation Research. Now, Dr. Gish was using those old Kodak slides, some of the older viewers of this video might remember, and if you don't remember them, it's just a older form of PowerPoint, basically. Now, in Dr. Gish's presentation were many sources dated from the 1950s and 1960s. And after his presentation, I was discussing it in the dorm with several people. There were creationists, there were atheists, people in between. And that was one of the criticisms made, was that his sources were old and dated. So I don't expect any radical changes in the laws of science, but I am more comfortable with sources that date to within my lifetime, preferably to within 10 or 15 years of the publication of the book that's citing them, unless there's a compelling reason for using older ones. Now, in a book like Science versus Evolution, an author might quote Darwin or Huxley or some of the early advocates of the theory, so I understand in that case you're going to be using sources that are old. But with the rapid changes in science, rapid changes in understanding, it's a good idea, I think, to keep your sources as recent as possible. Now, given that the book was published in 2013, I looked for publication dates in Dr. Miller's sources to be no older than about 1998 to 2003. And I would give him a B+ for that, because most of the sources seem to be current within those parameters that I've set. Now, what are the weaknesses? Well, first off, I would say the aforementioned bibliography is a weakness. Not sure if it's comprehensive or just sources cited. Also, since many non-scientists would read this book, I would have put a more detailed index in the back of the book, and there are a few other entries I would have made that he didn't make. Also, and this is kind of a cosmetic issue, the binding on the book is kind of weak. I read it through once and then went back to look at a few things preparing for this review, And I've already got pages that are getting loose, so be prepared for pages to fall out or at least come loose. Another issue is the book is written on a kind of a cardstock with a glossy finish. So if you're going to write notes or highlight like I did, a ballpoint pen is going to work the best. Highlighters and gel ink are going to probably end up smudging. Now, if you've read this book, I would love to hear your thoughts on it. Just enter some comments that you might have in the comment section below. Now, I have two simple rules for commenting. One is you keep them relevant to the subject at hand. In this case, Dr. Miller's book, whether you're pro or you're con. Second rule is no personal attacks, no name calling, no insults. If that happens, you'll be blocked from my page and we're done with you. I don't mind disagreeing. I don't mind if you're an atheist, a theistic evolutionist, a creationist. I don't mind opposing viewpoints. I like open discussion. That's the only way we're going to learn anything. But just keep it civil. Well, that's it for this particular book review. I look forward to hearing from you. Thanks for watching, and we'll see you in the next video.